Chapter-8. Garrett.
Morning. You have a little time before work today.
Clay's voice echoed in the quiet kitchen as Garrett stepped through the doorway. Early morning sunlight cast a warm glow on the wooden floor at his feet. Garrett glanced at his watch.
Yeah, I have a little time. What's up?
He glanced toward the coffee machine, dismayed to see it empty and off. He could have used some this morning. With a grin, Clay took a final bite of his breakfast, then pushed himself up from the table.
I want to take you to a new coffee shop that just opened. They make the best coffee.
The mention of coffee sparked a subtle excitement in Garrett's tired eyes. This conversation might sound peculiar if it were with anybody else, but Garrett just chuckled. He and Clay had been coffee drinkers since high school, and somewhere along the way, they had taken up the habit of critiquing coffee. So when one of them discovered a noteworthy coffee shop, it became mandatory that the other try it to either agree or disagree. If the other brother agreed, it was added to their list of good coffee shops. They had done this often until distance separated them, and Garrett realized he had missed it.
Well, I haven't had my coffee yet, so let's see what they've got.
Garrett smiled as he followed his brother out of the kitchen. The prospect of trying a new coffee place with Clay brought back a sense of camaraderie that the previous distance between them had dulled. As they both had to get to work right after, they took separate cars, which gave Garrett plenty of time to ruminate on the previous night with Renee as he followed Clay. Her hand had been so close to his as they drove through town, and the sweet fragrance of her hair had filled the truck. It still teased his memory because he could swear he could still faintly smell it now. Was it weird to hope it lingered? Probably. He should just suck it up and ask her out. It was clear his feelings for her weren't going away. If anything, they were getting stronger. He pulled into the coffee shop behind Clay. Frosty Brews. He supposed it was a good name, though the building itself was a little plain. As he stepped out of the truck, though, he could smell the aroma of coffee in the air. That was a very good sign.
You smell that?
Clay asked, a wide smile playing on his face.
This place might be at the top of our list.
Garrett wasn't so sure about that. It would take a lot for this place to rank that high for him. Chicago was much bigger than Fire Beach, and they had a plethora of amazing coffee places. So the current number one for him was a shop that used to be around the corner from his apartment there.
I guess we'll see.
Clay opened the door and Garrett stepped inside. It was like stepping into another world. The exterior of the place might be plain, but the interior was warm and cozy. Instead of the normal table and hard chair setup in most restaurants and coffee shops, this place had couches surrounding tables. Lamps that appeared to have wooden shades hung from the ceiling in different shapes and sizes, giving the room an eclectic feel. And at the back, he spied a bookshelf and a few plump chairs as if it was a reading corner. "Hi, welcome to Frosty Brews. What can I get you?" The pretty woman behind the counter greeted them with a smile. She had flawless olive skin and dark curly hair that was half pulled up, leaving a few dark tendrils to curl around her face. The name tag on her shirt read Julia. Clay stepped up and grinned at her.
What do you recommend?
Julia tilted her head and stared at him as if she could tell his coffee preference if she looked hard enough. For you, I would recommend the Colombian blend with a shot of chocolate. Not usually one for flavor in his drinks, Garrett was surprised when he agreed.
I'll just have the Colombian blend with room for cream and sugar.
Are you sure you don't want to hear my suggestion? Julia asked as one eyebrow arched.
What was this? A coffee shop or a fortune teller? You're welcome to tell me your suggestion, but I like my coffee to taste like coffee, so I'm not really big on additional ingredients.
Don't worry, I could definitely tell that. But I do think you would enjoy our vanilla bean bourbon coffee, with room for sugar and cream, she added. Clay nudged him in the shoulder and shot him a pointed look. Was he here for the coffee or the woman?
Come on, Garrett, be adventurous. I am adventurous. I'm a doctor, remember?
Clay often dismissed his profession as lacking adventure, but he'd never had to remove Legos or pebbles from a toddler's nose. A doctor who is not willing to try something new? Julia asked, her eyebrow lifting again. This I have never heard of.
Don't mind him.
Clay leaned in and lowered his voice conspiratorially.
He's never been great at trying new things. I moved here, didn't I?
Clay shrugged and Garrett rolled his eyes.
Fine, I'll try the bourbon coffee as long as there's no actual liquor in it. I cannot be drunk on shift, not even a little bit.
Julia's lips pulled into a sly smile that Garrett didn't really trust. You will not be disappointed. You go find a seat and I will bring them out to you.
Unusual, but okay.
Garrett followed Clay to a table away from the window but facing the door. As a cop, Clay didn't like to sit with his back to the door, so Garrett took that seat, even though it wasn't his favorite either.
She seems interesting, he said as they sat down.
Clay glanced over his shoulder to make sure his words weren't overheard, and then leaned in.
I think she likes you. What? She just met me. She was just being nice.
Clay's knowing grin persisted, and he shook his head.
She wasn't that nice to me the first time I came in. Yeah, well, maybe it's the uniform. You know how some people are nervous around cops. Maybe.
He looked back toward the counter and then grinned at Garrett.
Would you ask her out if she was interested, though?
I don't know. I mean, she seems nice and she's definitely pretty, but... Garrett let the words trail off as he realized what he was about to say.
But what?
Clay asked, leaning forward, a mischievous glint in his eye.
Nothing.
Garrett shook his head, hoping Clay would drop it, though he was nearly positive he wouldn't. Part of what made Clay a good cop was that he was observant and determined.
No, there's definitely something.
Clay's perceptive gaze locked onto Garrett for a second, and then his eyes widened.
It's that woman from work, isn't it? The nurse you said you wouldn't date.
He grinned knowingly and shook his head.
You're changing your mind, aren't you?
Before Garrett could respond, Julia appeared at the table and set down the drinks. Enjoy, she said, holding his gaze for a few seconds before returning to the counter. Garrett picked up the coffee and sniffed it. He was not a big vanilla fan, but this actually smelled okay. Lifting the cup, he took a tentative sip, surprised to find it wasn't half bad.
This is actually pretty good.
Told you, Clay said with a smug smile.
But don't think the coffee arriving is going to save you from my question. Are you thinking of changing your policy for this nurse?
Garrett sighed.
I don't know. Maybe. I just can't seem to stop thinking about her, and she's so calm and collected. She's a nurse. She's supposed to be, right? Yeah, but there's something different about her. She didn't hesitate to jump out and help when we witnessed the accident.
Clay's brow furrowed in confusion.
Wait, what accident? At the hospital? What was she jumping out of? No, not at the hospital.
He should have kept his mouth closed, but it was too late now.
She was giving me a tour of the city last night and we came across this wreck. She was amazing.
Clay rolled his eyes.
So why don't you ask her out already? Because you know what happened last time. I've already told you that girl was crazy, and you're not the same person you were last time,
Clay said, and took a sip of his coffee.
You've turned back to God, so have you prayed about it?
Garrett nodded.
I have, but I don't really know what answer I've gotten. Well, if you haven't gotten a no, then maybe that is your answer,
Clay said, and Garrett couldn't help feeling that maybe he was right.